Did Ukraine just make fighter pilots obsolete? This is Aviation Adventures with Captain Ron. Imagine you're setting in a modern fighter. You've got radar, data links, helmet sights, missiles that can reach way beyond visual range, and electronic systems that would have sounded like science fiction when I started flying many years ago. Now look at the war at Ukraine. Some of the most important aircraft in that war don't have pilots at all. They're drones. Some are cheap little camera drones. Some are one-way attack drones. Some are decoys. Some are flying bombs. Some are being modified almost as fast as they're being used. And that raises a question that's a little uncomfortable for those of us who spent our lives flying airplanes. Are fighter pilots becoming obsolete? I don't think the answer is yes, but I do think the war in Ukraine has changed the question. Because what Ukraine has shown us is not that airplanes no longer matter. What Ukraine has shown us is that airplanes no longer dominate just because they are airplanes. And that's a very different world from one a lot of us grew up believing in. When Russia invaded Ukraine, many people expected the war to go quickly. Russia had the larger military, the larger air force, bombers, fighters, helicopters, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, artillery, tanks, and all the intimidation that comes with being a major power. Technologically, of course, this is Russia, not the old Soviet Union, but Russia inherited a lot of the old Soviet military structure and a lot of that equipment. And I think it also inherited some of the assumptions that mass and intimidation could solve the problem. But that's not what happened. Ukraine, a much smaller country, did not simply collapse. It has taken terrible losses. And I don't want to make this sound like some clean little military exercise. It's a brutal, grinding war. Cities have been destroyed, civilians have been killed, and soldiers on both sides have been fighting in conditions that sometimes look more like World War I with drones than some futuristic war we imagine. But from an aviation standpoint, one thing stands out. Russia did not just fly over Ukraine, destroy everything from the air, and then let the ground forces roll in. That was supposed to be the script. It wasn't. And that tells us something very important about modern air power. For many years, especially in America military thinking, we got used to the idea that the first job was air superiority. You control the air, then everything else becomes easier. Desert Storm reinforced that in a big way. So did later conflicts where American and Allied air power operated with overwhelming effectiveness. But Ukraine reminded everybody of an older, harsher truth. Air superiority is not something you get because you have more airplanes. You have to earn it. And if the other side has mobile surface-to-air missiles, shoulder-fire missiles, radar systems that turn on and off, electronic warfare, decoys, satellite intelligence, and drones watching your movement, the sky gets very complicated very quickly. You don't have to destroy the entire enemy air force to change the war. You just have to make the airspace dangerous enough that they can't use it the way they had planned. That's the key point. If you have 1,000 airplanes, but I can't operate them freely over the battlefield, then those airplanes are not giving me the victory I expected. They still matter. They're still dangerous, but they're not decisive in the old sense. And that's where drones enter the story. Now, drones are not new. We've had remotely piloted aircraft, cruise missiles, reconnaissance platforms, and unmanned systems for a long time. But Ukraine has made drones part of the daily language of war. Not as some exotic secret weapon, not as a once-in-a-while special capability, but as a constant presence. A drone might be looking for a tank. It might be spotting for artillery. It might be carrying a grenade. It might be a decoy. It might be flying hundreds of miles to hit a fuel depot or an oil facility. It might be so cheap that losing it hardly matters. And that changes the economics of war. That's the part aviation people need to pay attention to. A fighter airplane is a magnificent machine, but it's expensive. The pilot is expensive to train. The maintenance is expensive. The fuel is expensive. The weapons are expensive. The base, the support, the equipment, the spare parts, the whole system behind that airplane is expensive. A small drone may be cheap enough to be treated almost like ammunition. That doesn't mean it can do everything a fighter can do. It can't. But if a cheap drone can damage or destroy something that costs millions of dollars, or simply force the enemy to reveal himself, move, hide, or waste an expensive missile, then the cost equation starts to change. And war is often about math, whether we like it or not. If you can force the enemy to defend everything all the time with expensive weapons and limited crews, you've changed the fight. That's one reason Ukraine has been able to hold off a much larger power. It doesn't have to match Russian airplane for airplane or tank for tank. It has to make the larger machine inefficient. Hit the fuel, hit the depots, hit the rail lines, hit the airfields, hit the command posts, force them to move, force them to defend the rear, force them to spend more than you spend. A giant military machine has a giant supply train, and drones and missiles have pushed danger far behind the front lines. They may be one of the biggest changes of this war. The front line is still deadly, of course, but the rear area is not safe in the way it once was. Air bases, oil facilities, bridges, ports, headquarters, and ammunition dumps can all become targets. And once that happens, size becomes both a strength and a weakness. A large country has more resources, but it also has more to defend. And Russia, as we all know, is a very large country. Now, does all of this mean the fighter pilot is finished? I don't believe that. And usually when somebody says, this one new weapon will make everything else obsolete, I get a little skeptical. Aviation history is full of those predictions. The machine gun was going to change everything. Radar was going to change everything. Now, in World War II, it was very significant. The jet engine was going to change everything. Missiles were going to make dogfighting obsolete. Stealth was going to change everything. Drones are going to change everything. And you know what? They did change everything. But never in the clean, simple way people predicted. They changed the problem. Then pilots, engineers, tacticians, and sometimes the enemy change the answer. A modern fighter is not just a flying gun platform. It can be a sensor platform, a missile truck, an interceptor, a command and control node, or a standoff weapons platform. It can help defend against cruise missiles and drones. It can work with satellites, ground stations, electronic warfare, and eventually unmanned wingmen. Yeah, that's coming. The pilot may not simply be pulling G's and looking for enemy aircraft over the nose. The pilot may be managing information, controlling weapons, sorting targets, deciding what not to shoot, and coordinating with systems that are manned and unmanned. So I don't think the fighter pilot is obsolete. But I do think the image of the fighter pilot is changing. The future may not be one heroic pilot charging deep into enemy airspace alone. It may be a pilot commanding a package of systems, some manned, some unmanned, some electronic, some expendable, some very expensive. The pilot may be less like a lone knight in the sky and more like a quarterback, or maybe a conductor, managing a very fast and very deadly orchestra. And that's hard for pilots to admit, because we love the airplane. We love the flying part. We love the stick and rudder part. We love the idea that skills matters. And it does. But modern warfare can be very rude to romance. The battlefield does not care what we love. It cares what works. But I digress. Let's talk about bombers for a minute. Are bombers obsolete? Well, if you mean a big bomber flying straight into a modern air defense system to drop bombs like it's 1944, that's probably going to be a bad day. But that's not how modern bombers are normally intended to work. A bomber today may launch standoff weapons from hundreds or even thousands of miles away. It may never go near the target. It may be used for payload, range, endurance, flexibility, or deterrence. The B-1s have been used a lot like this. So again, the answer is not bombers are obsolete. The answer is the way you use them have changed. And aviation has always been that way. The airplane changes, the threat changes, the mission changes, the tactics change. A pilot either adapts or becomes part of history. Now, hypersonic missiles are another piece of this. That word gets thrown around like it's magic. Hypersonic sounds futuristic, and everything moving that fast is serious business. I'm not dismissing it, but hypersonic does not mean unstoppable. A missile still has to be built. It has to be launched. It has to be targeted. It has to be guided. It has to hit something that matters. It has to exist in enough numbers to affect the war. And it has to be worth the cost. These guys aren't cheap. If the other side can detect it, track it, confuse it, intercept it under certain conditions, or simply absorb the attack and keep fighting, then it is a weapon, a dangerous weapon, but not a miracle. That's true of almost every so-called revolutionary weapon in aviation history. The weapon changes the problem. It doesn't end the problem. And that's what we're seeing in Ukraine. Drones appear, then jammers appear, then drones change frequencies. Then decoys appear. Then defenses adapt. Then mass attacks try to overwhelm those defenses. Then the defender has to decide what to shoot and what to ignore. Is that cheap drone worth an expensive missile? Is that radar return a real threat or a decoy? Is there a ballistic missile coming behind it? Are they trying to make you turn on your radar so they can locate it? That's not just flying anymore. That's a chess game at high speed, and the side that learns faster gains an advantage. I think that may be one of Ukraine's biggest lessons. It's not just courage, although there is plenty of that. It's not just foreign aid, although that matters tremendously. It's not just Russian mistakes, although there have been many. It's adaptation. It's the ability to change the answer quickly. In traditional military systems, a new idea might take years to develop. Test, approve, buy, and field. In Ukraine, some systems are being modified from battlefield feedback almost immediately. A unit finds a problem. The engineers hear about it. A change is made. The next version goes forward. That kind of speed matters. It may not be neat. It may not look like a polished military procurement program, but war is not neat. And speed of adaptation can become a weapon by itself. Bringing this back to aviation, I think the real lesson is this. The future is not manned aircraft versus drones. That's the wrong argument. The future is manned aircraft with drones, manned aircraft with missiles, manned aircraft with electronic warfare, manned aircraft with satellites, decoys, unmanned wingmen, and standoff weapons. The airplane becomes part of the system. As for pilots, that's humbling. We like to talk about the airplane. What's the climb rate? What's the turn rate? What's the speed? What's the range? What's the payload? All of that still matters, but modern questions are bigger. Can it see? Can it communicate? Can it survive jamming? Can it operate from dispersed bases? Can it launch from outside the threat envelope? Can it work with unmanned systems? Can it be maintained under attack? Can the weapons be produced in useful numbers? This is a different conversation from simply asking who has the best airplane. And that's why I'm careful with the word obsolete. People love that word because it makes a good headline. Fighter pilots are obsolete. Bombers are obsolete. Tanks are obsolete. Aircraft carriers are obsolete. Usually, what they really mean is that the old way of using them may be obsolete. That's different. The battleship didn't become obsolete because steel ships stopped floating. It became obsolete because aircraft, submarines, radar missiles, and changing strategy reduced the old battleship's role. Easy for me to say, huh? Horse cavalry didn't become obsolete because horses stopped working. It became obsolete because machine guns, trucks, tanks, aircraft, and radios changed the battlefield. So are fighter pilots obsolete? No. But some old assumptions may be. The assumption that the bigger Air Force automatically controls the sky. The assumption that expensive aircraft can operate freely over a battlefield filled with modern air defenses. The assumption that cheap weapons cannot threaten expensive platforms. The assumption that innovation only comes from big defense contractors on long timelines. And this may be the biggest one. The assumption that the airplane itself is always the center of air power. The airplane still matters. The pilot still matters. But neither one operates alone anymore. And maybe they never really did. We just notice it more now. Even in civilian flying, think how much the system has changed. GPS, traffic displays, terrain warning, data link weather, autopilots, flight management systems, satellite communication, engine monitors. Even in my Great Lakes biplane, I can record flight data now that would have amazed people in earlier generations, even just a few decades ago. The military world is just a more extreme version of that trend. The pilot's still important, but the pilot is now inside a much larger web of systems. And in some missions, the pilot may not be in the aircraft at all. That's not an insult to pilot. That's aviation evolving. So if someone asked me, Captain Ron, did Ukraine make fighter pilots obsolete? I would say no, but Ukraine may have made some fighter pilot fantasies obsolete. The fantasy that courage alone is enough, the fantasy that speed alone is enough, the fantasy that the best airplane automatically wins, the fantasy that a large air force automatically owns the sky, and the fantasy that technology solves the problem permanently. Ukraine has shown that every solution creates a new problem. Drones solve one problem and create another. Missiles solve one problem and create another. Air defense solves one problem and creates another. Hypersonics solve one problem, creates another. And in the middle of all that, human beings are still making decisions under pressure with incomplete information while the other side is trying to deceive them. That part has not changed. The best pilots of the future may not simply be the ones who fly the fastest or turn the tightest. They may be the ones who understand the whole chessboard, when to shoot, when not to shoot, when to turn on the radar, when to stay quiet, when to send the drones first, when to save the expensive weapon, when to use a decoy, when to stay outside the threat wing. This is not less demanding than old-fashioned flying. It may be more demanding. It's just different. So no, piloted fighters and bombers are not obsolete, but the battlefield they were built for is changing very rapidly. The airplane is no longer king all by itself. It's one piece of a much larger system, and the pilots who survive in the next war may be the ones who understand that system better than the enemy does. That, to me, is the real aviation lesson from Ukraine. Not that pilots are finished, not that drones replace everything, but in aviation, once again, it's changing. And aviation history has always rewarded the people who adapt and punish the people who keep fighting the last war. The airplane doesn't care what you believed yesterday, and war certainly doesn't care. It only cares what works today. And today in Ukraine, what seems to be working is not one magic weapon, not one wonder missile, not one heroic airplane. It's not one old theory of air power. It's adaptation, it's drones, it's air defense, it's logistics, courage, it's industrial speed, and it's the ability to keep learning while the other side is trying to kill you. That may not be the romantic fighter pilot story we grew up with, but it may be the future. And if we're smart, we'll pay attention. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you found this enjoyable, interesting, and informative. Aviation Adventures with Captain Ron.